Make it a better place
for you
and for me and the entire human race. Look at that. Duetting with Ricardo Karam. What is that driving force behind Ricardo Karam?
wanting to change the world and to make the world a better place.
What's it like to be Lebanese?
We're subject to being killed, assassinated, shot.
Do you think people avoid the truth?
The truth needs to be told.
So will corruption always win?
When you go to bed, do you have a clear conscience? And I see the people on the cover and how the ranking was made. Oh my God, who did this ranking?
Yeah.
They're conveying, false information. Now everybody is on the front pages of magazines and newspapers.
Or has that always been the case? This is not a new thing.
In Lebanon, the issue is not about freedom. On the contrary, this is a privilege. The issue is about confessionalism, sectarianism in Lebanon.
I can't believe what I'm going to ask you now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inside Track with me, Luca Allam. Today, I'm joined by a celebrity in Lebanon. Everybody knows his name. But off camera, I asked him, how would I best describe you? And he said, he is the curator of knowledge. Welcome to the show, Ricardo Karam.
مرحبا، عم تسمعوا أحاديث مع ريكاردو كرم.
بتختلف نقاط الحديث باختلاف نوعية الضيف.
مهني ما بتميز بين نهار وليل.
بالقصة التلفزيونية الناجحة يفترض عدم تدوير للزوايا.
في ذاك اليوم كما دائما تغلغل الصفاء في التجاعيد التي ملأت وجه الدلاي لاما.
It was no use. More hatred. It destroyed my own calmness, my own inner peace.
رجل أجهزة الكمبيوتر يلي صارت قبل الخبز في أغلب الأحيان هو ضيف هذه الحلقة هو بيل غيتس.
I love my work. I'm had a lot of amazing opportunities, and that's why I'm working hard trying to make sure we spend this money in a very impactful way.
هلا بتحلمي بفلسطين حرة محررة أبية مستقلة؟
حدا بيعتب على لبنان؟ لبنان شو هو لبنان؟ لبنان خسر كل شيء وبقي هون بهالبلد.
Thank you for being a part of the story. Thank you for giving us hope. My own pleasure. Thank you, Luca.
You're welcome. How do you feel about that introduction of being the curator of knowledge?
Well, I'm not. It was a pure marketing campaign, and this slogan has been used by my team, and they liked it.
Yeah.
So it does exist, on the small clip.
Yeah.
We've seen, we're going to see whatever that is shared on my platforms.
Yeah, I love the fact that, someone like yourself is extremely humble, very, very modest, and you're somebody who wanted to be described as just as a friend. And I've only met you once. So it's a fantastic compliment to you and who you are. And I think your reputation is very well earned. Everyone seems to respect you, like you, and appreciate everything that you've been doing. So for my own personal sake, I'm very happy to have you on the show. It's good to have good people.
Thank you. It seems our mothers were friends long time ago.
This is very true.
And it's so good to perpetuate this friendship.
That's very
and
true.
And to reignite it again. So here we are now for the first time meeting and sharing this conversation. And I'm happy to be with you.
My mum met your mum, I think, in school in Tripoli. About 50 years back, give or take. I don't want to give away anyone's age, but it was a long time ago.
These were the days.
Yeah. So when I told my mum that Ricardo Karam's coming on the show, he goes, "Oh, I know his mother. I know his mother. She's lovely." And she started talking on and on. You know how mums talk about how they remember the old days. And she also spoke very highly of your mum. She said that she could see from an early age why you would have the career that you did based on how your mum was.
This is nice.
Yeah.
First time I hear so, yeah.
Yeah, very sociable person apparently, and someone who's very open, very friendly. So very happy to also
I believe those friendships were so pure, so innocent. And this is why even if they did not connect throughout the years, there is something very deep and profound that keeps on linking those people together.
It's a different time, right?
Different times and different kinds of ties and friendships, bonds. You're talking about Tripoli.
Yeah.
The second largest city in Beirut, Tripoli, where all religions and communities were living together. And there was, this thirst of discovering the world and of learning. There was no social media, and the world was so closed, but beautiful. Everything was nice.
We'll talk about Lebanon in a bit. There's a lot I want to talk to you about today. Very happy to have you on the show. First and foremost, talk to me about your mug. What's going on here? What mug have you brought in today, Ricardo?
Listen, my favorite people call me dad. And definitely this is the case of every parent, father and mother, their kids. And mine for me are the gems of my life.
You have 3 boys, right?
And they are, yeah. My 3 boys are the people who make every single morning look different. And they make me look forward to seeing the sun rise every morning so I can go and give them a hug and wake them up and spend a little time with them, but which is enough for me to fuel me and to allow me to go onwards.
Very nice. I've got 2 boys. I've talked to my wife endlessly about going for number 3, but we're worried we would have potentially a 3rd boy. What's your take on 3 boys?
I wanted to have a girl, and I'm someone who has a lot of faith, and I believe a lot, and I've always got what I asked for, and this was the only time in my life, where my request was denied.
Look, there's still time
but
for a
God
4th.
gave me a wonderful boy.
Yeah, Ricardo, there's still time for a 4th. You know?
Yeah, we thought about it. It was too late. We had a special case in our family, and that prevented us from going onwards with our plans. Yeah. But it's fine. We have 3 boys, and they will get our 3 beautiful girls, inshallah.
So, do you recommend me going for number 3 if it's a boy as well? We'll
for 2 more.
Go for 2 more. So, you've been someone who's been in the public eye for over 30 years. You started in Magic, is that right? In
Magic 102.
Magic 102. You've done a lot of different things over that 30-year period. When someone asks you, what do you do for a living? Do you struggle sometimes with answering that?
I do. From a TV show, my activities and my businesses mushroomed and proliferated and developed. And I do work a lot. I'm someone who's workaholic. I have founded a group of companies. Each one is independent from the other. And unfortunately, after all those years, I'm still involved in every single aspect of everything I'm doing. You reach a time in your life when you want not to rest, I believe, but at least to know that things will sustain and will work in a very suitable way, without anomalies, without mistakes, without faults, depending on your team.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. This kind of work is too much critical that you need to keep your eye on every single detail. And this is tiring. But yes, those 30 years were years of hard work. I have worked very hard. My days start very early in the morning and I go back home very late in the evening. I hardly see my kids and my wife. But also at the same time, and weirdly, I wake up every morning still with new projects and new ideas. And I'm still able
so
to make them
happen. Because look, that's remarkable. Because look, those who don't know you, you're probably most famous for being a very famous interviewer. Let's put it that way, right? So from someone who's watching from outside of Lebanon who wouldn't be familiar with your story, if they were to do any searches on you on YouTube, they'd be seeing you interview some of the most famous people on the planet. Okay, to drop a few names: Bill Gates, Luciano Pavarotti, the Dalai Lama. Having someone on the show who has tremendous experience just in one particular line of business, and I'm calling it a business. Entertainment is a kind of business. Journalism is a type of business. But then to also have had a career that involves doing a lot of humanitarian work, pushing the boundaries for ethical movements, for cancer initiatives in Lebanon, being someone who's actually sponsoring, the benefit of the next generation of Arab people. You have your hands in so many different pies. How do you keep yourself going? And what is that driving force behind Ricardo Karam?
Wanting to change the world and to make the world a better place. Everything I've been doing for the last 2 decades, I would say, it was about the communities and trying to give more and more to what people have given me. I have embraced fame very early in my life. I was too young, and people gave me love, and people praised me, and I did things I've loved, and I wouldn't trade anything I've acquired across all those years. And I reached a certain age where I thought that, come on, embracing fame, being known, being on covers of magazines, having dinners with kings and queens and princes and royalties and big CEOs, it's a big thing, of course. But beside that and behind that, what can I do? Can I do?
How old were you?
Too much misery.
Yeah. How old were you when you touched that fame? When you were on the cover of these magazines, when you're dealing with royalty, just to contextualize
I was in my mid-20s.
You're in your mid-20s. How could you not get affected by that? Because a lot of people, when they touch fame that young, their entire lives change and they're not able to remain as grounded. So what was keeping you grounded during all of this?
I've always been focused since being very young. I think since my childhood, I knew that I needed to be autonomous and independent. I had no one to depend on. And that made me even more focused on every single aspect I have tackled. I've worked since my teen years, small businesses. I was so smart in making money. And I've always known that my brain will always guide me and lead me to what I want. I never thought that I would be the person I am today. I never thought I would be a public figure. I never thought that I would have millions of people who would listen to what I'm saying and who would watch me on TV interviewing people. I never thought or dreamt about meeting those I've met, having lunch at Zuckerberg, going and spending time with the Dalai Lama, interviewing.
What was that like?
You know,
you met the Dalai Lama.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously, do you know when you're coming on the show, and I'm about to meet the person who's spent time with someone like, such a figure in the world. It's a little bit intimidating, to be honest. How was it for you meeting him?
You're talking to someone who's been in the business for the past 30 years. And this is a question that has no clear answer. Because at that time, when I met those people, the feeling was different from the one I have today. First of all, when you're in your 20s, the feelings that inhabit you is totally different from the ones that you have at the age of 40. The first interview I've done with a big celebrity was, for me, the pinnacle of my career. I thought, oh my God, I became someone very, very important.
Who was it?
And then across the years...
Who was that first interview?
The first time I had someone important was the president of the Lebanese Republic, Ilyas Harawi, at that time. I was 24. And I thought, oh my God, I had the president. This is a great thing for me. And across the years, and as time passes, you understand that all those human beings are human beings. Forget about the titles. And irrespective of who they are, what they do in life, they are like me and you. And we're all the same. We dream, we cry, we have moments of joy, of sorrow, we encounter death, we face sicknesses, we transition in the world. We're not different.
Yeah. So being able to sort of resonate with them being a fellow human being is, in a way, allowing you to take them off that perch that others would put them on, so you could actually have that sort of talk at a more down-to-earth
I'm talking
level.
about that now at a distance. Had you asked me that question 30 years ago, my answer would have been different. But today, the way I look at all those years, my perspective is the fruit of all those encounters, all those experiences that shaped me, that made me who I am today. I'm a different person today. I'm someone so much spiritual. I'm someone who meditate. I'm someone...
By the way, I can feel that. I can feel the zen in the room. The moment you walked in, sat in that chair.
I have so much peace.
There is so much. I don't know if you can feel this, but here, in this room right now, the energy is so peaceful. It's so calm.
I'm so glad.
Really. So, and I'm a big believer in energies and what you brought in. But just circling back to the Dalai Lama, when you met with him, how did that change your life? How did that impact your own energy?
The image I recall vividly about that encounter was not himself. It was actually the Tibetans fleeing and reaching Dharamsala, the town where he lives in India. I saw those people who were able to make it and to remain alive throughout this journey, because it was a big jeopardy. It's a gambling when you leave Tibet. You're subject to being killed, assassinated, shot. However, among 100 people, 20 people make it. So when I saw them coming in and kneeling in front of him and himself giving his blessing, I was tearful. I told myself, this guy has an aura that nobody has. I knew, of course, he was different. I know he was a leader, but I haven't felt that spiritual touch. And I haven't had this feeling till the moment I saw those people coming in. And he was so nice to me that he took me in his arms and he told me, I'm happy you're here. This is nothing. This is only a beginning. And I spent, a whole day with him. A whole day with him.
Wow.
And
what did you
in
learn?
the evening, I was alone with my team in a small restaurant, one of the few restaurants in that area. And we ordered, whatever was available. It was pasta, if I recall very well. And the waiters came and sat with me. And I had a long talk with them. Turning to the hotel, I told myself, those people have nothing, but they still have everything. They live, in small places.
Yeah.
But they have the happiness.
Yeah, I mean, that's what everyone talks about.
And I don't have it.
Everyone says that the happiest people in the world are the ones who tend to have the least, or who are ignorant to the rest of the world, if that makes sense.
It was unbelievable. They have everything and they have nothing. And I might have everything, but I don't have that happiness. So this is when I think my quest for happiness started. And I did start digging and reading and discovering not the wells of life and the treasures of life, discovering who I am, what I want in life.
And what do you want?
To be happy and to make people happy.
On my show, I always ask my guests for a safe word if they are feeling uncomfortable with any probing questions that I may ask. Do you have a safe word in mind?
I love my wife.
That's your safe word. It's a number of safe words. I love it. Where is your wife at the moment? Is she back in Lebanon?
She is in Beirut, and we have decided to remain in Beirut.
Okay.
With all the possibilities we have, since we have different nationalities and we have different houses abroad, we decided to remain home. And you need to be Lebanese to understand how come people who have the possibility of living abroad during those times of war remain in Lebanon despite everything. We couldn't leave.
I've never seen patriotism like the Lebanese. I've never seen it before in any other country. Like what you're saying, if anyone has half the chance, they would want to cut their losses and get out. But the Lebanese they're built differently. If someone meets you, let's say from the UK or from the US, and they ask you, what's it like to be Lebanese? What would you tell them?
To be joyful, to be resourceful, and to be a constant dreamer of a better tomorrow.
Do you think Lebanese are big dreamers?
Of a better tomorrow, yes.
Yeah.
Hadn't we had faith in tomorrow, we wouldn't have remained home. Home definitely is Lebanon.
Yeah.
Yes, we believe in tomorrow.
Do you think there's a realistic possibility that Lebanon will be able to bounce back from everything that's been going on?
Yes.
How can that happen?
What is Lebanon? Do you think Lebanon is what? The nature, the sea, the mountains, the beautiful houses, the legacy, the heritage, Baalbek, Tyr, the hospitals, the universities. Yes, these are major components of what Lebanon is about. But Lebanon is mainly the people, the Lebanese. They're unique. I've got friends all over, from Montevideo to Seattle to Montreal, and then you go to Beijing and New Zealand, and great friends all over the world. In every single port or airport I land, there was someone waiting for me.
It's nice. I wish I had that.
But the best Lebanese, the best friends I have are Lebanese.
They go the extra mile. They make you feel welcome.
Not only that, I think they gather the different characteristics of all nationalities. They are a melting pot They are a result of what the American has, what the British has, what the French has, what the Emirati has. We're different. We're different. And in every single company worldwide, you find a Lebanese. In every single newspapers worldwide, you'll find, a Lebanese journalist. In every single industry, there's always a Lebanese outshining and succeeding and embracing life with a big smile, with hopes, with dreams. Yes, we are dreamers, but we make our dreams true.
Ricardo, you said something a bit earlier about how you follow your brain, right? But everything that you say and how you say it seems to me that you follow your heart much more than you follow your brain. What leads you? What guides you the most in making decisions, in choosing how to live your life, and who to keep in your life as well?
You know that transplant of hearts is a very common surgery. But when you change your heart, your feelings remain the same. So what dictates your feelings, your sentiments is here, your brain. Yes, my brain has always been the leader in my life. The balance I have reached, the peace I have known, and the relations I have built were all led by this brain. And my brain has always strived for peace, for compassion, for tolerance, and it's humanity that matters mostly for me. So everything I've done was under the big theme of humanity and spontaneously.
We have some questions in here later, which we're going to get into, which is going to tackle some of this. So I'm not going to dive too much into it now. Your favorite interview to date?
Too many.
First one that comes to your mind.
Etel Adnan.
Why?
There's only one Etel Adnan, of course. Great poet, one of the biggest painters today, a woman of substance, a woman who have made out of her life a one-of-a-kind journey, a woman who dared to write and to share her ideas and her life, a woman who lived with a woman among the first publicly in the 60s in Lebanon, a woman who has acquired philosophical ideas and who has understood what life is about in a very subtle and simple way. I think I came at an era where I was so lucky to meet those giant people and those iconic figures. It's not evident. Today we live in a world of dwarfs. We have wonderful people, it's true. But when I began my journey, it was still the journey. It was still a time where we had big legends, and they all went.
I have a theory. I was good about building what you're just about to say. That when I grew up, didn't have as many legends, but the older I get, I look around the world for inspiring leaders, for leaders that people can look up to, who can identify with and want to be like in a positive sense, to be a positive role model. There are very few and far between, my friend. Sure. Why is that? Why are we not being able to produce positive world leaders that people can look up to and that can guide with this and with a sense of humanity the planet?
I think the iconic figures came at a time where there was no social media. They came at times of difficulties. There were difficult times, and they needed to impose their ideas and their art and their talents. There was hard work and hard labor. Today, who is leading the world, and mainly the Arab world? The fashionistas. Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
I mean, I can. Unfortunately, I can. But even more dangerous are the algorithms that are powering those fashionistas. Right? It's actually the machines on social media that's being able to dictate who becomes a celebrity, who becomes an influencer.
Not necessarily that. If you look today at the traditional media, and if you see who are they showcasing and who are the stars on the small screens, you don't have stars anymore. There are some celebrities for a season, for a couple of seasons, and that's it. You know, I came at a time we had great journalists. Wow, great TV hosts, great singers, great writers. You know, I've interviewed Zaha Hadid. I've interviewed Nicholas Hayek, the guy behind Swatch and Swatch Group. I got the guy who founded Kinko's. I have interviewed Emily Nasrallah. I have interviewed Domingo Carrera, Sabah. I was able to sit with iconic figures who worked, you know, with their sweat for decades to become who they are and who they became afterwards. Everything is different today. Everything is different today.
You don't like the world today, it seems, versus how it was.
For a painter to become a star in the world of art, it took him or took her 40, 50 years and 60 years. Today, the stars in the world of art, you know, they can mushroom and they can become who they are, you know, after one sales.
We're in the world of now.
Thanks to
we're in the world of
Christie's
now,
or Sotheby's.
100%. We're in the world of now, being instant, right? Being able to, people always want to have the short track. They want to be able to cut corners to get success quickly without having that consistency of hard work.
There's too much ignorance. And media has nurtured that ignorance, whether traditional or social media. And I think the different regimes in the Arab world and for decades, they wanted people to remain ignorant and stupid. They wanted to alienate them.
It's easier to control them.
Of course. They wouldn't ask more than the boundaries they were allowed to. There were some guidelines. Besides that, forget.
Yeah. But Ricardo, that's a fine balance between, you know, big media conglomerates trying to control the people and then having an overspill of the influencer generation where things are out of control and things are getting, let's say, fast-tracked when they shouldn't necessarily be and misled. So what is that balance between not having too much control, but giving that freedom and that liberty for others without it becoming too fragmented and too difficult to rein in later?
We don't have media outlets today that are affecting the world big time. It's not influencing the world big time. It might impact for a certain season, for a certain event, such as now the elections, the US elections. People were following some outlets. ABC, you know, had its audience. CNN, its audience. CNBC, its audience.
Yeah. But you know what Trump did is he focused a lot on podcasts. He went on the biggest podcast in the US to reach untappable audiences previously to help us swing the vote. I mean, famously, when he went on to Joe Rogan, he captured the imagination of an entire audience of Joe Rogan and got Joe Rogan's endorsement. So are we seeing now a change in a changing of the old guard of how media is being done, how it's being produced and filmed and manipulated to a completely fragmented world driven by shows such as The Inside Track or other smaller outlets to help create a sense of specialization of niche audiences that, if properly tapped into, can harness unbelievable amounts of power?
The paradigms are changing, of course. Now, you use the word manipulative and manipulation. This is something a little bit different. Today, it's all about sensations. It's all about shows. Trump is a showman. He is a showman, you know, and he proved it, not only in politics, but in his life. You know, he was an entertainer at a point of time. You know, he had a TV show and he outshined in it, you know, and he knew how to lead it and to become a star. And the way, you know, he did his campaign, the way he ran, the way, you know, he ruled for 4 years, you know, was unconventional. You know, he was firing people, he was attacking people, he was making decisions on Twitter. It has never happened before. It was not the establishment that ruled for 4 years when he was there. It was himself ruling. With Kamala, people did not know how she would eventually rule had she won.
Yeah, there was an uncertainty.
Because there was, you know, an establishment behind her. And this is how she worked. But however, today, I think what touches people are stories. We need to be a good storyteller. And we need to be real. And we need to talk to people in a very simple way. This is why the podcasts are working. This is why, you know, you're succeeding. Because you're real. You know, we're home, okay? This is, how you live. This is your environment. This is your mug. This is you, a simple t-shirt, not trying, to have makeup on you, not trying to put a suit and a tie. No, it's a simple encounter. And people love that. And unfortunately, when we see some of the interviews, which are supposed to be podcasts, and I know for myself, when people interview me in podcast, I say, it's not a podcast, it's an interview. Questions prepared, the introduction, and no, it's a simple conversations. So why people are enjoying that? Because they're simple and real.
That's real.
So whenever you're real, you can reach people.
Yeah.
And you can manipulate people.
Yeah, 100%, which Trump is a master of, by the way. The rhetoric, the language that he uses, simplicity of that. He can brainwash entire generations. Question I have for you. Donald Trump is sitting right here, right now, and you're interviewing him. You get one question for Trump. What are you going to ask him? Oh, it's a good one.
When you go to bed, do you have a clear conscience? And do you think that what you're trying to convey is real? Does it come from here? Or it's a comedy and a real show?
I love that. How do you think he would answer?
He will definitely answer me, though, the way he is. He doesn't care about anybody. He's careless. He'll tell me yes or no.
Circling back to, we talked about our mums before. My mum used to always tell me, Luca, whatever you do in your life, as long as when you go to bed at night and you put your head on that pillow and you have a clear conscience, that's the most important thing you can ever do as a person. And
how many people do that?
Not enough. That's the.
How many people have clear conscience, you think? How many people have a conscience?
I think it becomes once you go down that path, it becomes easier to not have a conscience. I think the first 2 or 3 times when you've done something that is wrong, it might be harder for you to sleep. But then the danger is if you keep doing it, it just becomes easier and easier. And that almost becomes your new life.
When you see this misery, when you see this amount of death all over, and you see those villages and towns destroyed, and when you see people fetching garbages to eat something, and you don't say anything, and you're silent, what do you call that? What do you call that? There is, a lack of humanity today.
It's inhuman. Look, we are very fortunate that we live here in Dubai. We're very fortunate with the life that we lead. We do try and help as much as we can from afar with the likes of fundraising, charity work, donations. We've done a lot of volunteer work also here as part of the UAE, but it's never enough. And the thing is, you can always do more, and you should always do more as human beings. For those who are not in the same level of life stage, or they don't have the same benefits as you do. But unfortunately, Ricardo, as you well know, people in this world are not fair. This is a very unfair world, and there are a lot of inhuman people where suffering goes unpunished. People hurting others, it can just remain. It can remain, and no one's going to do anything about it. And what annoys me more than anything else is people just have now accepted it and no longer stop to look at the news feeds anymore because it's too difficult. And now I can understand why people do that, because it's hurting them. But if you turn it off completely, what you're basically saying is it's someone else's problem to deal with. And if everyone took that same stance, nothing will ever really change, will it?
I think people are too much individualistic, and the only thing they care for is themselves, their interest, their well-being, and their own happiness. And this has become a trend. It's not a momentum, it's a trend. And a trend can become a life pattern. And I think what I've been witnessing, because I traveled a lot, I'm every single day in a different country, especially in the Arab world, people have that. It's too much focus on themselves. You mentioned Dubai. Dubai is a different case. I think the UAE is really a miracle. What Emirati were able to build and to make is a miracle. I have a friend of mine who wrote an article a couple of days ago on his page, on his blog, and I love that. He compared London to Dubai. And he said, I've been to London in the 60s. And he described London, how it was at that time. And then he compared it to how it looks today and how life in London is today and how people who have succeeded and who've paid their taxes and who've given a lot and who are generous to charities and who build businesses and employ thousands of people, they're fleeing, they're leaving because of the establishment of the system they have. And he compared all of that to Dubai, what it was 6 years ago and how it became today. And how this country, UAE, did everything to alleviate the burden of their citizens' life. And they gave them everything to make them happy. And while I was landing yesterday and getting out of the plane and going to the airport, I thought about that article. I thought how it's easy to come into Dubai, to check in, and to leave the airport in a few minutes, to get into a car, to go to your hotel. Life is easy. So I do not like to compare any other city to Dubai.
Yeah, it's definitely unique.
And no, not one single city can become Dubai. They're all trying to compete to become what the city is about, and nobody would succeed.
Look, I left London. I will go back there one day for sure. I do miss home. And for me, look, I spent a long time growing up there, but a lot of people from Europe, from the Middle East are coming to Dubai because it's a safe haven. It's a city that welcomes. I always say on the show, it's a city where nobody belongs here, yet at the same time, everybody belongs here. And it's a really nice notion.
It's a city where you leave the door of your house open.
100%. Even my house. You can come in tomorrow. I'll leave it open for you. Ricardo, this is the part of the show where I'm going to give you control, okay?
Okay.
You're used to taking control when you're in the hot seat anyway. So I'm going to hand you this bag. In it, there are a bunch of questions. Take out one question at a time and let's have a chat about it. Yeah? Do you like golf? Are you a golfer?
I've tried for a few months and then I stopped.
Yeah, Lebanese don't like golf. I don't know. Every person I've had on the show, if they're Lebanese anyway, they don't like golf. We have to try and change that.
No, we need to have time to play golf.
It's also true. And it's not really a priority right now in Lebanon.
The hectic life, I have, especially when I'm in Lebanon, I do not find time for that. So it's going to be difficult for me to be able to read that without my glasses. So remain objective or use personal conviction.
Okay, so when you're as a journalist or if you're interviewing someone, is it more important for you to remain objective, or do you think right now using your personal conviction and actually standing for something and saying what you believe is more important?
When I'm interviewing, I'm definitely objective.
Okay.
When I'm being interviewed, it's my own conviction.
Okay. How easy is it for you to remain objective when you're interviewing someone, when you're interviewing someone that you fundamentally disagree with? How difficult is it not to share your own thoughts?
I definitely give my opinion, but at the end of the day, I'm getting this person to listen to him or to her. So the show is theirs. I've once learned that I'm a star on my show. I'm the star of my show. But whenever I have a guest, he is the star of the show. So I need to put him or her under the spotlight properly well. I ask the questions and I follow up, properly well. I do my homework properly well. And that's it.
Do you think you've been able to survive, not survive is the wrong word, but flourish in this industry for such a long time, have that consistency, that longevity, because you've remained objective? Because had you pushed out too many personal convictions too early on, you may have alienated large amounts of audiences and stakeholders, and you probably wouldn't have had the career that you had.
I think I sustained because I have diversified, first of all, the kinds of show I've presented. I've been truthful to myself, always about integrity. I think I've survived because I was smart enough to create my own businesses, to establish different companies that would complement each other. And I was never the slave of a TV station or a simple TV show. I was smart enough to figure out that and to know that the minute, I'm depending on a TV channel, they can let me go anytime and any second. And I overcame that.
Very nice. Should we do another ball? Do you want to put it on the table? Makes it easier for you. Alrighty.
So the second question.
Well, if you can't read it, you can always make it up. It makes for a more interesting interview.
What makes it the right question to ask?
How do you know you're asking the right question? I mean, you've done this for such a long time now. How much thought and preparation you put into asking a question, and then how do you know it's the right question? What are the ingredients that you really need to make sure that it's on point?
I know people pretty well. I live among people. I know the pulse of the audience, and I know what the public usually wants. I never interview someone from the perspective of being Ricardo Karam. I put myself in the shoes of the audience, and I always address or ask or raise the questions the audience wants to get answers for.
If the audience was online right now and listening, which they are, what would be the question you think they would want me to ask you?
I don't know. To ask me?
What would the general public want to know about Ricardo Karam? Look at that smile. It's coming. The Zen-like.
I think it will be maybe political, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So
they're highly interested in knowing that.
So what are your political views? Especially now in the Middle East and also in Lebanon.
I was raised in this very complex country that is Lebanon. Too beautiful. We praise Lebanon all the time. But at the same time, this diversity in Lebanon, which is supposed to be a source of richness and of a big added value, has become a source of problems. 17 communities living together in a political system, in a constitution that is not giving everybody its own rights, because it's too much religious. It's too much depending sectarianism. I believe in laicity, and I want to see the country, a country that gives you what you deserve because you're a human being, and not because you're Christian or Muslim, Shia, Sunnah, Catholic, Maronite, whatever. So this is how I believe. I believe in humanity. I'm part of the party of humanity. People want you to think the way they think. People want you to love the people they love. And people want you to attack the people they usually attack. And I'm not like that.
So you don't nail your colors to a mast with any party.
I cannot be that individual, who hates and who looks at the other because they're framed in a political sphere and in a religious sphere. I look at you. I do not judge you, but I look at you as a human being. You're bad, you're good. This is how I look and I see things. I don't care if you go to church on Sunday, to the mosque on Friday, or to the temple on Saturday. I respect all the communities. And if you're a good human being, you'll be my friend. If not, no.
Look, this point of view, I admire. And it's also probably one of the reasons, going back to one of my earlier questions, why you've been able to have this longevity in this part of the world, because you haven't put your support behind one party versus another party. And you've remained relatively neutral.
Between the producer and the TV show, and between the CEO of a group. I have a group of companies. So I've got my businesses. So irrespective of my political views, the business will flourish and will grow, because I always make it grow. As a journalist, why did I sustain and why did I have this long journey and career? Because of my integrity. I repeat. I did not sell my soul. I did not sell my skin. I've always been consequent with myself. Always. I never changed my ideas and my opinions like people usually do. The pro-Trump or the against Trump, after the election, they all became, pro-Trump. And no, it's not like that. I am really consistent with everything I have done. And people see that and know that and follow that.
And that's why your reputation is what it is.
Thank you. This is nice.
Let's do another ball. Easy so far, huh? These have been nice and gentle. It's an eye test. This is what you come for an eye test, huh?
What is more effective? Share the truth or storytell the lie?
So we talked a little bit earlier about storytelling. Well, you mentioned storytelling. So what is more effective and what is more powerful? The truth is powerful, right? But storytelling in a beautiful way, a lie, can be even more powerful. What's your view?
people love fake news. People love lies. And they say that a lie, they say the truth takes always time to come from down and to reach the top. But a lie can drastically go up in 1 second. It's easy to convey a lie. People love that. People love rumors. People are more excited to listen to lies, unfortunately. So it's easier to propel it. It's easy to convey it.
Do you think people avoid the truth because it's easier?
People don't love the truth. The truth can be boring for them. It's not sensational.
And how does that reflect on humankind, if that's the case?
It's not exciting. This is why people are ignorant. This is people, they run after what is not solid. That's why people are shallow.
Do you think eventually they get found out?
Time is always the major component that will allow the truth to come out. It takes time, but it will always come up.
So reread the question again.
What is more effective?
What's more
Share
effective?
the truth or story tell the lie?
So what is more effective then? What's your answer?
For me, it was always about the truth. I've always worked to seek the truth and to make it come out and to make it emerge. I've always tried to make it win and to overcome all the nasty things, all the bad things, or the fake news.
How much can we believe in what we see and what we read?
It depends how it's wrapped. It depends how it comes out. You have mentioned before Donald Trump and the way he marketed himself and the way he made his campaign. Whether it's truthful or no, genuine or no, but he conveyed his message.
So if there's an article that's 99% true and 1% false, is that an infactually correct article? Is it a lie what the article is talking about? How do you classify what is truth for you? You know what I mean?
There is no absolute truth in life. There are always angles that might not be accurate in any article. I think the truth is objective, but that has always a certain percentage of subjectivity. It's the way you perceive it, to the way you read it, to the way you look at it, to the way you want to believe in it. And there are people, who believe politically in a certain ideology and in a certain vision, and they would never think that it's not coherent and it's not correct or it's a bad one. But they believe in it and they think this is the truth. So this is why the truth is very subjective. Time only will allow the truth as an absolute one to come out.
We have to all be patient, I guess.
If we have the time. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah, sometimes you don't. Right, next question. What do we have here?
Our podcast, the biggest threat to the controlled media.
You have your own podcast.
They can be. The biggest threats, no, but a big threat, yes, of course.
So what is the biggest threat to the traditional controlled media? If it's not podcasts.
It's a mix of many media outlets.
Okay.
Twitter is one of them.
You still call it Twitter? You don't call it X?
Yeah, Twitter, I'm used to it.
Everyone calls it Twitter still.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk has spent so much money trying to convince everyone to call it X. They still call it Twitter. So what will news look like in 20 years' time? What's your projection? If you're saying that the biggest threat is actually a collection of different media outlets, what will news look like in 20 years? Or 10 years?
I can't tell. I can't tell. I subscribed to Twitter, to X, in 2012.
Okay.
So my team did it to me.
They forced you.
They forced me, and I never tweeted.
Yeah.
Till the year 2019.
Okay.
When we had the uprising in Lebanon, and the protest started in Lebanon, and I felt I needed to raise the voice and to share, with some people what I think, how I think. I had no audience. I had no friends because I never tweeted before. And I found and I felt its impact across few weeks. And I have built a big pool of friends. I don't like to call followers, but friends, virtual friends. And I love that. And I never thought that someone like me who writes blogs and articles of different pages is going to put in a very small sentence a whole idea. And I did succeed in that. The question you asked me, my projection in 10 years and 20 years, I'm telling you, for 7 years, I never thought I would do that. And I did it, and I'm happy. And I think today, the digital media world has allowed me to have a huge outreach and to be heard and to be listened to even more than the TV shows I had. So in 10 years, how would it look like? I have no clue. Nobody can tell. The technology is, I think, changing permanently and constantly. Tomorrow is another day, and I don't know how the media will look like. I don't know what the TV will look like by then.
Will you still be doing this in 10 years?
If I'm alive, I think, yeah. I'm still youthful.
You're still young.
And
man.
young.
Yes, you look great. So.
And this is, a proper time for me to bring all those experiences I had. And, we are a season at the end of the day. We are, a salad at the end of the day.
A salad?
A salad.
I never thought you'd say that. Okay.
Yeah,
Tell me, why are we a salad, Ricardo?
Yeah, we're a salad of all those experiences. We bring them all together.
Yeah.
We're recipes of life that we've acquired, that we have written, that we have built. And we bring them all together and we become that salad.
I can't believe what I'm going to ask you now. What type of salad are you?
A tasty Lebanese one.
Are you a tabbouleh man or are you more of a fattoush kind of guy?
No, I'm a tabbouleh man.
Yeah, Ana kaman. Should we do another ball?
Tabbouleh bala burghul.
But it's apparently burghul is fattening. That's what someone's been telling me. So I've got to take that advice. Yeah.
My wife is into organic food, and we have acres and acres that we plant.
Very nice.
And everything we eat is organic.
Yeah.
And we love vegetables and fruits.
Very nice. You haven't had to use your safe word yet. I love my wife. That hasn't come. So far you're good. You're feeling comfortable.
No need. She knows I love her.
Yeah. No, but your safe word.
I know. I don't have to repeat it.
You don't need it. Okay, done.
What will it take for Lebanon to overcome? Unity, solidarity, compassion, tolerance.
Are they achievable? Are they realistic? Can it ever happen?
I hope so. I don't think so for the moment, but I hope so. The media is nurturing that discourse and that speech of hatred. And media needs to have different narratives. The media is not helping at all. And it's media financed.
And when you say media, you're talking about TV. You're talking about traditional TV, linear TV, right?
TVs.
But when you come on podcasts or other sort of social channels, do you feel the narrative is different?
Yeah. There's freedom. At the end of the day, Lebanon has something nobody can take away from it, which is freedom.
Is Lebanon really free, though?
Of course. It's the only Arab country that has freedom of thoughts, of expression, freedom to say whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, and nobody will come to you.
The US always talks about how free they are as a country and that they champion freedom. Do you think that they are the right example when he looks at freedom?
The US, slogans.
Not reality.
Everything, that was sold to us was fake, was not true. I was in the States last February, and I spent a lot of time with the students in universities. They were demonstrating. It was so sad to see what happened. It was so sad.
How the police were arresting the students? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Not only arresting, the whole scene was so sad. Fear is the worst feeling that the human being can eventually have. Fear. Where? In the States, on a campus. The fear of saying whatever you want to say, of expressing yourself,
Do you think
of asking for justice, for human rights. Can you imagine?
do you think you can ever have too much freedom, Ricardo? Because look, if you say Lebanon is one of the freest countries in the world, it's not exactly flourishing right now. So is there a danger with having too much freedom?
Of course, freedom needs always to have a certain ceiling. I believe in horizontal freedom
What does that
and
mean?
not vertical one.
What does that mean?
You're home, you're in your house today, and this is your house. Even when you're with your wife, there are things you respect, and there are bylaws you put. Whether you, your wife, your kids, the helpers, there are things you need to respect. And in life, there are things we need to respect. Religion is something we need to respect and not attack. Human beings, dignity of human beings cannot be tarnished whenever we want to. We need to respect that. Beside that, yes, say whatever you want to say. In Lebanon, the issue is not about freedom. On the contrary, this is a privilege. This is something we have, nobody has. The issue is about, I told you, it is the confessionalism, sectarianism in Lebanon, the tribes of religions, the prince of religion. This is the issue, fighting between each other. Beside that, we have no issue.
So you think Lebanon, going back to the question, it can overcome?
It will overcome.
It
It needs time,
Yeah.
but it will.
Give me a time period.
I'm too much confident.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful. I have a dream, and I think this dream will happen. It will become reality. We will make it.
Inshallah. Okay. Have you ever read read questions from a golf ball before?
No.
First time for everything.
First time.
The Dalai Lama didn't give you golf balls, did he? Huh?
Do values of compassion, integrity, and honesty carry the same value?
So we've talked about this, and I'm so glad I asked this question. But they still carry the same value. Those, in particular, those three values, they still carry the same value in today's world as they once did.
Maybe they're not as predominant as they used to be before. There is, as we've discussed earlier, there is always the interest of the human being that is predominant, that have the biggest stake in one's life. But however, it's all about upbringing. It's about education. It's about what you're going to feed your kids with. If you teach them to be compassionate, to be honest, to be authentic, they will be as such. In life, our life teaches you maybe sometimes to fool around a bit, just for things to happen. It's not a problem. You will. But what matters is to stick to what you have acquired and how you were raised.
Do you think that it's becoming more and more difficult and people stand out more if they have those values, because everywhere else around them, those values are being eroded? So you're able as an individual, if you can manage to maintain this throughout your life, it's harder to do that now than it would have been, a few decades back. Do you agree with that?
It's a personal exercise. I like to wake up every morning and to stare at my mirror, at the glass, and to be proud of the human being I am. I want my kids, when they grow, when they get old, to be proud of the father I was and to the human being I was. And I want them to say he was consequent and truthful to his values. And he had never had two different faces. One face for the public and one face, a hidden one, home with us and his business or private life.
You must have seen that. You must have seen that a lot in your career. People on camera, off camera, being totally different types of people. Doesn't that annoy you when you say, man, you're being fake. You're not real. You're not a real person, because you're able to switch on a different life, a different persona, a different character, just because the camera's on. Doesn't that really annoy you?
Yeah, it gave me a lot of ideas as well. I'm going to write a book.
Okay, nice.
About all those experiences.
Mention me, please. I'm a nice guy.
I think it's going to be, a book that will enhance a lot of animosity.
Okay.
People will not enjoy what I'm going to say,
Okay.
but the truth needs to be told.
Yeah.
I did start at a very young age, and I have seen so many things, and I have been part of many people's lives. I went to their homes. I traveled with many of them. I had lunches and dinners. I listened to the conversations when they were clear, when they had the mind clear, when they were drunk, and I know things. And those things
It's dangerous. You're a dangerous person.
need
Yeah,
one
yeah.
day to be said and to be
Yeah.
told. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said earlier, the truth eventually does come out. Very nice. Right, next question. What do we have?
Is our humanity being killed one person at a time? It's weird, all those themes and questions have been tackled by you and I during our conversation. Isn't it weird?
Well, one can say that it's on point. Let's put it that way. Do you think we are losing our humanity one person at a time? With every person that's being killed, every innocent person, and every innocent child.
We're losing our integrity. And by losing our integrity, we're losing our humanity. It's all about selfishness, as I said. It's all about selfishness. But it's all at the same time about what we want in life. It's a matter of priority. Most of the people want more and more. They want money. They want power. They love powerful people. They think that by having ties with powerful people, they are empowered themselves. They think that being friends with rich people, irrespective where the source of money is, they can become rich themselves. And maybe it's a tool of security for them to say, I know X, Y, and Z. So people tend to shy away from the essence of life, and they go for what is illusion.
How can you tell someone's a good person? What's your definition of a good person?
I think the biggest success in life is one's family. When I look at someone who must have made money maybe, and when I see his family and the way he brought up his kids and the way he treats his wife and the way he behaves with his bigger family, with his friends, with his employees, with his team, I can tell he's good or bad.
Great, I love that. Last question. I love that.
Corruption will always win debate.
Corruption will always win. And you just talked about now money. You just talked about power. So will corruption always win?
Unfortunately.
Isn't that a sad indictment of our times? Or has that always been the case? This is not a new thing. Corruption's been going on for centuries.
For centuries, of course, but not with that proportion that we are witnessing today. Today there's a lot of money. It was not the case hundreds of years and decades before. The amount of money being done today and being made today is huge. Used to listen to a couple of names 20 years, 30 years ago, names of rich people. And, they were at the front pages of all the magazines. Now everybody is on the front pages of magazines and newspapers. Especially, those magazines that are edited here. When I see Forbes Middle East and I see the people on the cover and I see the ranking and how the ranking was made, oh my God.
Yeah.
Who did this ranking?
Yeah. Do these things bother you?
It's not truth.
When you see injustices, like
it's not
even
truth.
as simple as thing as a ranking.
It's not truth. They're conveying, false information.
If people put you on a ranking of any list, what would you like them to say about you?
Number one in humanity. That guy was a human and was truthful to himself.
Very nice.
This is what matters to me mostly. So to go back to how you introduced me, creator of knowledge.
Curator of knowledge.
Of a humanist, I would prefer the second one.
You also said to me off camera, introduce me as a friend, which I actually prefer the most. So I'll go with number 3. At the last thing of my show is something that I've introduced relatively recently, where I give you a white ball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There's no question on it. You get to say anything that you want to say that you maybe haven't said, or you get to ask, because you are a famous host, you get to ask any question to me that you would want to ask. So it's up to you. You have the power. So blank ball, nothing on there. What would you want to say, or what would you want to ask?
Luca,
Here it comes. The man who's interviewed Bill Gates. Here we go.
you've decided to abandon your previous life and to change everything in your journey. And you're having this podcast now that everybody is keen into following and watching and listening to. What do you want really to change? And do you think your podcast will enable you to change the world and to make it a better place?
Great question. Not an easy question. I did this because you used the word abandoned. I didn't abandon my other life. And I still hold that part of my life very dear to me. It's helped shape who I am as a person. And I'm very appreciative for everything that's happened in that previous life, if you want to call it. The reason I'm doing this today is because I generally believe there isn't enough good in the world. There isn't enough quality when it comes to content in the world being done by people who are honest, who are authentic, and who want to make a positive difference. Generally speaking, I think a lot of people get into this business because they want to make a bit of money, they want a bit of fame, they want to be able to have that overnight success. For me, I'm doing this because I want to meet interesting and diverse people who I can resonate with, who audiences can resonate with, and ask questions that will hopefully uncover insights that will inspire people. If I can get 100 people to think differently, or to be slightly better, or to have more information and to be less ignorant, then I've succeeded. So I'm doing this first and foremost because I generally believe this is what I was meant to be doing. Whether it's any good or not, I'll leave that up to others to decide. But something that my mom told me, and I've said this I think once before, is that whatever you do, Lucas, she told me, whatever you do on this show, be a force for good, because there isn't enough good in this world. And when I go on my social platforms and I speak to people and I interact with people, there's a lot of bad people out there. And I generally believe that there is an opportunity for all of us to be better. So I'm using this platform to help me get better in whatever form that looks like, but also to get people on the show that can inspire others to get better as well. So that's what I'm doing it. And if I can make some money off it and have a career off it, then even better. But look, you've done this for 30 years. So there's so much everyone can learn from you within this business, but there's also so much that people can learn about you from outside the business, how you lead your life, how you choose to behave, the examples that you said, how you raise your kids, and your belief system. So it's people like you when they come on the show that just fills me again with that energy to keep doing. And
Luca, you have mentioned your mom 3 times at the show.
Oh, have I? I should mention my dad then. Hi, Dad.
I'd like to know the impact of your mom, her influence on you. What were the major things she taught you? What were the lessons she shared with you and she asked you to share and to keep in your heart and your daily patterns?
Look, I mentioned about the clean conscience, having a clean conscience before you sleep, very important. Doing good to others is very important, and spreading good is very important. Look, my mum is someone that has devoted her life to her family. She was going to be a lawyer when she was younger. She was very smart. She always tells me she was top of her class. So when I was failing at school, she'd always remind me of that. She gave all that up, her career, to marry my dad and to raise her kids and to instill values that her kids can then obviously take on board and then share with her family. So
it's unbelievable, how our parents live within us. It's unbelievable. Gibran, he said, the most beautiful word is the word mother, and how true it is. Our mothers, even if far away, if living, if alive or no,
yes,
they are with us all the time.
Yeah.
And this is, what upbringing is about. This is, how we are nurtured, and this is what education is about. You have kids, and you need to perpetuate what you have learned to your kids.
100%. And it takes two to tango, as you know. You can't raise kids by one. You need a strong father and a strong mother. You need them both to be in unison. And I'm very fortunate that I have both amazing parents. Very different parents for those who know them. They're very, very different, but they complement each other well.
And you have a wonderful wife as well.
I have an incredible wife.
She's the inspiration too.
Yeah.
And the
We talk
producer
more
of the
about,
show.
honestly, we talk more about my wife than we talk about my family and myself. But that's actually fully deserved, because those who know her will tell you that she makes me look good in every single way, and I would be nothing without her. So I'm very appreciative of the woman that I married. This is not your interview, and you only get one ball. You've already asked two questions, so we're going to call it there. But Ricardo, look, you're a fantastic person. You're a fantastic human being, curator of knowledge, humanist, whatever you want to call yourself. You're a great guy, and there needs to be more people like you in this world. I want to thank you for being on the show. I do watch your conversations with the Ricardo podcast. It's a bit intimidating having you on the show when like I said, you've had so many people be on the other side to you and interview. So, interviewing a host, someone like yourself, is not easy, but more than anything else, I'm just happy to have met you and to get to know you better. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Look, it's a great pleasure to have been with you. You're not an interviewer, you're a friend, as I've told you. And by following your podcast, we can eventually ignite or build up a relation with you, even if we do not know you. So this podcast allowed me to get to know you personally and to understand the reasons behind your success. It is this simplicity, this humanity, and this authenticity, what you are presenting. I love that. Keep it ongoing, keep it alive.
Thank you very much.
In life, we come to make a change, to leave a trace. And I think my role, your role, the role of each and everyone is to help humanity and to make really the world become a better place. I was a Boy Scout and I loved scouting, and I spent 10 years. And I think a lot of the values that I have learned were through being a Boy Scout. And I love nature thanks to it. And I love discipline thanks to it. But there is in a prayer that you used to say every morning, we need to make the world a better place. And when Michael Jackson later on made his famous song,
Make it a better place
for you and for me
and the entire human race. Look at that. Duetting with Ricardo Karam. I love it. Doesn't get better than this.
It did resonate big time, with what I have learned. So I think it's our responsibility to keep on doing that, even if the change we make is very, very small. One change next to each other
has a big effect.
That would be a big change for all of us. Thank you so much.
100%. Guys, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Please subscribe his podcast as well if you haven't already. And of course, continue to like and subscribe mine. This is The Inside Track. I'm Luca Allam, and I'll see you very soon.